Hey guys, and welcome back to Listen, I Have an Idea. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for all of your positive support on yesterday's video when I highlighted a ton of other NaNoWriMo writers. I'm definitely going to be doing it in the future, so if you have any suggestions, or if you yourself are making videos, or you have a blog and you want me to check it out and potentially highlight it in another video, please comment down below. I would love to see what you guys are doing and what you are writing. The topic for today's video is how to write a chapter. This doesn't necessarily mean it has to be your first chapter. It could be any chapter throughout your entire book. Even if you're just writing a short story, these tips might be helpful for you. Of course, all of the links to all of the websites that helped me will be in the description bar below. Let's get started. The first tip is to treat each chapter like a short story. So you want to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. By treating each chapter like a short story, you have a clear idea of where your book is going to be going. It should have just enough plot, just enough of the characters, and just enough action to sustain the reader through however long you make your chapter. That leads us into tip number 2, and that is determine a length for your chapter. In some of my research, I found a lot of people were suggesting to not make your chapter too long because then it reads like a historical fiction book. I do have to say that when I was in high school, we had to read some of the classics, and they didn't necessarily have chapters or any kind of breaks. They were quite boring books. They were very difficult to read. When you're planning on writing a chapter, figure out how long you want to make it because you want to ensure that all of the action and all of your plot progression takes place within that specific amount of pages. Number 3 is to organize your chapter. By planning out all of your chapters, you can see exactly where your story is going. Also, it's very helpful when you're writing your chapter. That way you don't get ahead of yourself. I find that when I'm writing, I tend to look down at the sheet just to be sure that I know exactly what I'm going to be writing for that chapter. I don't want to get ahead of myself and I don't want to rush my story too much. So by organizing your chapters, it definitely helps while you're actually writing. Tip number 4 is something that I saw online, and honestly I never even thought about it until I saw it. Somebody suggested to start at chapter 4. This is for those of you who might just be starting or are too caught up in the really dense narrative and world building that takes place typically at the beginning of the novel. By starting at chapter 4, you are going directly into the plot. You can skip over all of those first 3 chapters and come back to them later once you have the majority of the rest of your story planned. By then you will know exactly what you want to happen in the first 3 chapters that will essentially set up the rest of your story. It might actually be beneficial for you to start at chapter 4 or just to write a random chapter. You don't necessarily have to write your book in chronological order. For some of us, like myself, it might be a little bit helpful to write in chronological order, but it's up to you. It's your book. Tip number 5 is to start with a very strong opening sentence. This is probably something that you already know. You want to start off your book with a hook. You want to get the reader engaged in what you're writing. You want them to keep on reading. You want to start off on a very strong note for every single chapter. In fact, why don't we play a little game? Let's pick a book and see what their opening line is. I'm gonna pick this one today. This is The Fiery Heart by Rochelle Mead. I'm just gonna flip through and find the first chapter that I see. Okay, we have chapter 12. It's called Sydney, and the opening line is, "I didn't blink an eye when my AP chemistry teacher told us we had a pop quiz." Bam! That is action right away. You get emotion from the character, you get a setting, and you also get an event. There you go. That is a very strong opening sentence. Tip number 6 is to follow the typical English class progression of your book. You want the beginning, you want the rising action, you want the climax, you want the falling action, and you want the ending. You don't necessarily have to have the falling action and an ending for each chapter. You can just have the beginning, the rising action, and then leave it off at a climax. It's up to you how you want to write your chapter, but if you follow that, it will keep the reader engaged. You'll also see a really natural plot progression happening in each chapter if you kind of follow that graph. Tip number 7 is a question to ask yourself as you're writing, and it is, does the reader need a break? When I read, I know personally I like to read at night, and sometimes if a book is really good, I will continually ask myself, should I read another chapter, or can I read one more chapter? And I'll occasionally flip through and figure out how long the chapter is. If it's an extremely long chapter, I feel kind of cheated. I don't necessarily want to read a chapter that's 50 pages long, but if it's like 15 or 20, I feel totally okay with staying up extra late and reading that chapter. That's just one thing to ask yourself. The other thing is, do you feel like you need a break while you're writing? If your chapter has gone on for, I don't know, 10 double-spaced type pages, do you feel like that's a decent chapter? Ask yourself these questions and figure it out. If the answer is yes or no, you know what to do. The last tip for today, tip number 8, is to just keep writing. It doesn't matter what you are writing, just keep doing it. The goal for NaNoWriMo is to reach 50,000 words, so if you just keep writing and keep pushing your story, you will get to 50,000 words. You can revise and edit and delete a ton of stuff afterwards, but if you just keep writing, the story will come and it will build right in front of your eyes. Sometimes people get into a writing slump, or what they typically call writer's block, but if you just keep writing, just keep going with it. Writing what first comes to your mind when you think of what you want to write for that next sentence. Go with it and you will eventually have finished an entire chapter and then an entire book. Isn't that crazy? That is it for me today. If you guys have any other suggestions, please leave them down below. I would love to read them. And if you yourself are participating in NaNoWriMo and want to leave me a comment telling me what you're doing or tips that you think have helped you so far, please comment down below. I love reading them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow with another helpful video. Bye!